Minutes before we get started, and we'll hop into the signal-based webinar today.
Ooh, excited. It's fun stuff. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining. Thank you. Of course, this is going to be recorded, so we're going to have some of this content as well, so we can repost and make some more of this too. But we'll wait for a few more to get started.
I heard that's the number one asked question on webinars. Is this recorded? And the
Yeah.
answer is pretty much always yes, unless it's like an exclusive thing.
Yes. This is
Sometimes I feel like we should do a non-recorded one just to be like, hey, we're gonna
Yeah,
say weird stuff, and like if you're here, you see it, and if you don't, like that's it.
yeah. This is not recorded. If you don't show, you're gonna miss out. FOMO.
Yes. FOMO really works.
It helps with conversion though. Scarcity
Yeah.
can help. I don't know.
Definitely does.
Oh, there's
Oh,
people chatting. Amazing.
yeah, we'll get started.
FOMO is where it's at. Nice comment, Rob.
Um, yeah, so where is everyone at? If you're in the chat, feel free to share where you're at. I'm personally in Tampa, Florida. Um, very nice here. This week it's nice, which is good. Bethany, you want to share where you're at, and then we'll hear from Nick and Kevin.
I'm in Austin, Texas, where it's also absolutely perfect this week. I see someone else is from Tennessee. I just moved here from Chattanooga, Tennessee. So I hope you're enjoying the changing leaves there.
I'm in San Francisco. It is also nice here, but cooler for San Francisco weather. But I'm going on tour next week. I'm going to be in Austin, so maybe we can meet up in Austin at some point. Bethany, but my schedule's pretty slammed. But and then I'm going to Boston too, so traveling a bit next week
Yeah, yeah. Let me know if you're free for a coffee.
for sure. All
Cool.
right, popcorn and Nick, yeah.
Yeah, nice to meet everybody. So I was just in Orlando, and I can confirm that it was beautiful in Florida yesterday. But I'm in the New York area. So
Very nice. From Long Island who moved to Tampa. I escaped. All right, so we'll just go ahead and we'll get started here. Yes, this is being recorded, but feel free to write in the chat, everyone. Would love for you guys to be a part of this. So today we're going to dive into signal-based selling. So we're going to dive into, what is a signal, understanding how to identify these signals, and we'll even do a few plays from the team. So as we get started, we'd love to kind of go around the room. If you guys are open to sharing yourself a little bit about your role in your company, so that way we have a little bit of context for the team that's watching. So Bethany, you want to get started?
Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Bethany. I'm the co-founder and CEO of SenseSpark. SenseSpark is an AI personalized video platform that you can use to send like personalized videos to people at different aspects of the customer journey. One thing that we've been really big on lately, and a big reason that we're setting this webinar now, is like when is the right time to send videos, the right time to reach out, and the right time to add personalization. So very excited to be here with you all today.
Perfect. Nick, would you like to share?
sure. So my name is Nick Turner. I am the CRO at Dream Data. We're an attribution platform specifically for the B2B space. I've been in sales leadership in B2B, MarTech, SaaS for the last 15 years.
And Kevin?
Yeah, my name is Kevin. I lead the marketing team at Common Room. Common Room is definitely one of the players in the hot signal space right now. So what we do really well is capture signals from many different digital touch points. Our plan is to capture them all, like Pokemon, and then tell you the person and the account behind the signal and connect all the dots, and then also help you take action by plugging into products like SendSpark or Outreach or SalesLoft or all the like different go-to-market execution tools. So that's Common Room in a nutshell.
Love it. Excellent. Alrighty, so to get started, we know that signals is huge for not just this past year, and probably around the 2 years is where people really started talking about it, but obviously it's getting more and more prevalent. It's really important that we are all starting to leverage signals, but it might be new for some. So would love to kind of go around the room and share a little bit of like, what is a signal? as well as, if maybe you might define it a little bit differently. So would love to kind of start off, Kevin, if you'd like to kick us off with like, really, what is a signal?
Yeah, I know. I feel like I should have like a really crisp definition, but there's not like a great consensus around this right now. But to me, the signal is like an action, like something happened that is a signal, meaning like buying signal, right? So it's like a signal happened from someone you cared about, and that or sorry, an action happened from someone you cared about, and that is a signal that they might be in market, or they might be interested in your product or the problem or the pain point or somewhere in the funnel. And so I kind of separate or draw the line in the sand of like, is this an action that a person took, or something that's happening within an account, like they're hiring someone, or the person's visiting a website, or they're commenting on a LinkedIn post. It's like the action part of it to me is a buying signal. And I think the blurriness comes from attributes. And so to me, I separate attributes and signals differently. An attribute is like, I'm a marketer. I work at a company that has 100 people. These are all things that are almost like they have the same state. They don't change. And so signals are to me the action part of that. And that's where I kind of like delineate between a signal and an attribute. And one other thing to add there is that both things are important, where, you could get tons of signals, buying signals, but they could be from a dentist that you don't care about because you don't sell to dentist. So like the person and the attributes behind the signal, or the account behind the signal, really matters. And like combining the two is where you can come up with these signal-based plays that we'll probably get into later. So that's my off the cuff POV.
Love it. Anything you'd like to add to that, Nick? And then we'll go to Bethany.
Really, no. I mean, I think Kevin hit it on the head. I think I do think of like two types of signals. I think of engagement, and then I think of trigger. An engagement signal is something that's happening directly with your brand that a buyer is engaging with. And then of course there's the trigger where somebody's changing a job. That's probably the most common trigger that I'm aware of anyway. Kevin probably knows a ton more. But I think that's what I think of in terms of something that happens outside of your organization. That's a trigger that you want to reach out and engage with.
There's a few different vectors that I like to think about too. One is like the strength of the signal is like, is someone raising their hand to request a demo? Like that's probably an action, like a signal to like actually take action on, if you're, of course, like on a demo request, but like if you're SDR or someone, you should take action on that. So there's like that spectrum. And there's also the spectrum of first party. We also have, we call it second party, but first party, second party, third party. Usually people think of first and second party signals. So first party would be like the person, like this person took this action. And then third party would be like this account did this, like hired a bunch of people, or like they mentioned this in their 10K. So it's more like at the account level would be third party, I would say.
Yeah.
Bethany, anything you'd like to add before I have some follow-up questions?
I think you guys like define what a signal is very well. One thing I'll say is like, we talk about signals being really important as like, a trigger for outreach and, showing intent that someone might be in market, especially combined with the attributes. Sometimes I hear pushback, like not everything is a signal, like, not, just because someone's on your website doesn't mean that they want to be reached out to. And I would say like, it actually all is signals, but then it's important for you to figure out like, which of the signals mean that you should actually reach out. But you should listen to all the signals, try to orchestrate the best buyer journey, and then identify the best triggers from there.
Right. And I think that as we kind of dive into this, I think if we could a little bit later on, we'll dive into the strength of a signal and what really is a signal that you should take action on, and what are signals that you should start to analyze and maybe stack with other signals for maybe like an outbound play. But it's funny, it's like we have all like kind of been looking for signals for so long, but they haven't been structured like the way that that we're looking at the signals now. So it's like we used to do so much of this like deeper research, or it would be like this one notification that someone got hired from a job, and it was like, okay, we need to act on this because it was like that one signal. So it's really cool to see how much this has all changed over the few years, and how now we're able to analyze what are these different signals, and can I create like a narrative around, a company that could be needing maybe they're looking at SunSpark, like they're not just on our website, they're also liking our LinkedIn post, they're also checking out this blog, like they're doing all these other things that are making us now say like this is a strong person to reach out to. So let's kind of dive into like identifying some of these signals, because like I said in the beginning, or like many years ago, it was like, okay, a job change notification on LinkedIn, and it was like that's all we had. So now let's kind of talk about how are we identifying these signals today? And it might be a little bit different for each of us. So Bethany, if you'd like to start off, what are some of the signals that SunSpark is identifying, and any actions that we're taking on it?
Yeah, so there's a few that we're using heavily right now. One is like website visits and like different pages people might visit. So coming to the website, looking at either like pricing pages or other like hot pages. I'll also say in terms of like signals and attributes being combined, we'll also look at like maybe not necessarily as a full signal, but did they look at our competitor comparison page? Because that's going to tell us information about who they're comparing us against, or certain integrations pages and like what that tells us about how to reach out. We also look heavily on social and like what posts people are engaging with or posting themselves. And then of course, like SunSpark is a product-led growth company. So we have people, like anyone can sign up for an individual plan. And then based on how people are using the product and how they're hitting upgrade modals and other triggers in app, like those are signals that there could be a larger opportunity to reach out to.
Excellent. Nick, would you like to add what are some of the signals that you guys are checking out right now? How are you identifying them?
Yeah, definitely. I think we have a list of about 20 signals. We tend to obviously exhaust the ones that are direct engagement before we're going to think about what are the external triggers that we think about, like a job change. We want to exhaust things that are happening on our site and our product. So, we have about 20 that we look at. Obviously, the strongest one that we look at, of course, is they request a demo. A lot of people wouldn't think of that as a signal. It's just a very, very strong one. So we got request a demo, we have free trial, sign up for us, so some PLG in there as well. And then it can run the gamut all the way down to, in our product, we get LinkedIn ad impressions. And so that is what I would consider a weak signal, a very weak signal, but it is one. We know that they might be aware of our brand, and then we can trigger a sequence to go out to that person, or rather we trigger something else with the marketing team versus just the sales team to increase our engagement on that account if we see an ad engagement, not just an ad impression coming from LinkedIn or any other platform.
Excellent. And then Kevin, anything that
if you don't mind, I might share since we work with lots of companies who are trying to this is the number one question asked from them is like, what signal should I start with? Like, how do I know what's going to work? Tell me the plays that work, show me the templates and things like that. And so because we got asked this question so much, we created this resource. I'm just like drop in the chat here. It's only hosts and panelists that can see it, but I don't know if you can share it with the rest of the group here. But essentially we have this let's see if I can share my screen. We have this resource here that has a bunch of signals, like 100 of them that you can look at or use for inspiration. So, because I feel like it's starting at a blank slate is kind of it's always hard for me to do that. And then we group them, like each of these tabs is different things, but we group them into like different categories. And I think Bethany and Nick really hit the nail on the head with like, okay, how do we, what signals should we use? It kind of depends on your go-to-market motion, right? And so if you're a product-led company, people are signing up for your product, they're engaging with your product. That's probably like a really good source of signal to start with. But if you're sales led, then maybe that's not a good place. And maybe you want to start on LinkedIn, or if people are opening your email or something like that. So we've kind of like grouped this, which can map to what your go-to-market motion is. For example, like a really good example is if you're an open source company, there's signal happening on different channels like GitHub and people merging things, committing things, reporting bugs. Like this is all great signal for a dev tooling company, but like other companies, like a lot of people on this call probably don't care about GitHub at all. So I think it's really just reflecting on like, okay, where is our audience? Where are they hanging out? Can I identify a signal there and like group that together? And you probably already have signal that you're tracking already, like demo requests, like email opens, like website tracking, like that's a good starting place. And you can kind of like take inventory of, okay, we're acting on these signals, we're scoring these signals, and we're passing them over to our go-to-market teams to work. which ones are working well and which ones aren't, and can we just expand the aperture on what we know is working as kind of like the starting place that I like to suggest. So sorry, I'll stop sharing my screen and taking over things, but yeah, I feel like it's helpful to group things together and start where it makes sense because it's bespoke for every single company.
I think it's also not just every single company, but also like you as an individual. So an example, like as someone who posts constantly on LinkedIn, like I do use that as a place where I can identify some signals if people are not just interacting with my post, but also with SendSpark posts too. Not everyone is posting on LinkedIn, so that might not be like their strong suit of a signal. Maybe they're looking more at like job changes and things like that. But like for me, a big reason why I do post is so that way I could see like, okay, who's engaging? Because if I'm posting about SendSpark, then maybe they are interested in SendSpark too. So I also think that signals can also be more tailored like towards the type of seller or marketer that you are, along with the type of company that you have.
It's a spicy topic nowadays that to use LinkedIn as a signal because people are like, oh, I don't want to comment on this because someone's going to reach out to me on the sales side of things. But I think if you do it the right way and you're always like thinking about the outreach side of things, like really, really makes a big difference. And you want to be helpful, consultative, and not like, what's in it for me? Like, hey, get a demo. Like, no one wants that. So it's all part of the balancing the delicacy of outbound, I guess.
How do you feel about the signals when it is like so unrelated to that company? It's someone else's company, it's someone else's post. And this happens to me all the time. I get someone reaches out saying, like, oh, I saw that you liked Kristen Connor's post. And then they go ahead and they pitch slap me. What are is that what you mean a little bit by
Yeah, that's what I mean a good amount. But like, so this is another point too, which is like you don't always have to mention the signal in your outbound. You can use it for prioritization of the account, prioritization of the person, and like know that they're in market. But you don't have to say like, I saw you visited the pricing page. I saw you commented on our competitor's post. Like that's kind of creepy. So you have to kind of balance that. So I'm sure other people have maybe takes on that too.
One thing I'll add to that, like in terms of pitch slapping, not to shamelessly plug SendSpark, but I feel like we found like a pretty good balance in reaching out to people. And again, not always mentioning the post, but like sending a video as if it's like really helpful content that's like relevant. And I mean, it is, right? So we're sending like a personalized video based on that. And like I've like watched the responses and like for the most part, people are like, oh, thanks, or like this is so helpful. And so I think that if you're like you kind of find the signal, you want to reach out, you don't want to pitch slap, like that can be a really good use case to send a video.
You should definitely be careful in terms of, all these signals are going to have two things related to them. It's level of effort from the signal. Once you get a signal, the action you have to take, how much effort do you have to take to actually close that deal? And then of course the conversion rate for that signal. If you are going out and looking at your competitor's post and seeing somebody like that post, and then you're going to try to convert them off of that, your success rates are going to be pretty low as compared to some of the stronger signals that you see. So I think no matter what your signals are, they'll be different for everybody. Just make sure you know what the conversion rate is for each one.
We found like something interesting there on the higher the signal strength. Obviously, like the less effort. Like if someone's requesting a demo, there's even a tool to just like you don't even have to have a person in the mix. Like they can just book a time with you if they're the right account via like Chili Piper or something. But like the signals that have less strength are typically higher in volume. So like a website visit is going to be a lot higher than a demo request, but they just take a lot more effort and thought to actually get them to convert. So it's kind of like this. I don't know if it's a paradox or what. It's just like the more signals you have, the more effort you have to put into like getting them to convert essentially.
Yeah, I think it's a really good trade.
No, sorry, go. Sorry, it's just usually.
Yeah. I was gonna say, and that is like definitely the right trade-off. And one thing that we kind of figured out like early on, we started using Signal, like even before I feel like it was a real topic, we just kind of stumbled onto signal-based sales. And we found that in general, even just using some signals versus pure cold, like our close rates shot up. And then of course, like, yeah, the stronger the signal, the deeper they are, then like the higher the conversion rate. And so, but you're right, then the trade-off then becomes volume. But I think that is a good way to just think about how signal-based selling like fits into your sales strategy is the trade-off of like volume and close rate and the size of your sales team and your capacity.
Yeah, it's a combination too. I mean, Kevin, I'm sure that you guys do this, but in terms of combining multiple signals into one and saying, okay, A plus B plus C is a much higher conversion rate than just A plus B.
Yeah, that's a good point. We like to call it signal stacking. I love using the
Yeah.
pancake emoji for that. And like some of the ones that work really well are like there's a lot of like siloed signals that we've acted on in the past. Like a job change is like a very clear one. But like if you can get a job change plus like this person was a product user formerly and now like the company that they're now at is using your competitor, like that is like extreme like red alert like signal you should definitely follow with this person because they're like joining somewhere, they're going to be a change agent and they're familiar with your product. Like, so there's things like that of stacking, which really, again, the volume gets lower. Like as you add more filters, like the N is going to be smaller, but like the signal strength is way higher. And those are definitely people who should prioritize by stacking.
One thing I'll also add into that, and like speaking of the trade-off of like strength of signal and likeliness to close, is also the ability to automate. Because like if you think about that, where it's someone who's used your product before and like it's a super red hot signal, super likely to close, that's also going to be harder to automate. And so I feel like you want to think about, okay, these are the super hot signals that actually go to sales or going to personally reach out versus like website visit, kind of weak signal, but if that's the only signal they have and that, there's something really general and common in all those people, you can really automate your outreach towards them. So you're just another trade-off to play into it is like, should it be automated, wide net, low conversion rate, or should it be high touch, higher likelihood to convert?
Yeah,
I like
it's
to
kind
put
of like asking for
You go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
for permission. You ask for a small permission to do X, then Y, then Z. And so if you start with like an ad impression, then you say, okay, let's start with the website visit. Say, okay, I'm going to add you into this audience. I'm going to start, retargeting you on LinkedIn or something like that. And then you just kind of get permission to do more and more and more. And then finally you get to a point where you got permission to have an SDR reach out, something like that, and it's a good way to think about it. So
yeah, I was gonna add that I like to have humans in the loop because humans are a lot better at figuring things out than an outreach template that who knows if it's gonna work or not. And so that's typically like the way that we start is like we'll have our SDRs run signal-based plays, and then once they reach this point of repeatability where it's like, oh, I'm just selecting all these people, adding to the sequence because like we've tried and tested the sequence, we know it works, we know this messaging works. That's when it's like time to just automate it and get them to move on to a harder signal and figure that out and then rinse and repeat. And so that's like the way we kind of like scale signals. It's kind of like this S curve of like get optimization, then reach a point of saturation. That's when automation sets in and then just like go on to the next thing.
Could you give a few or an example there, Kevin, when it comes to what is more of like an easier signal play versus like a harder signal play with when it comes to like, okay, this is going to go and be automated for so and so, but then here's one where we do want to have an AE or an SDR like really evaluating it.
Yeah, I think it's again on that like curve of is this like a really high intent signal or not? And so a product sign up, like someone signing up for a product in your ICP, like that is something where we've had a human in the loop, but like we have because we want to look at like their role, we want to look at the company they work for, and it's not so automatable where it's like very predictable, like, oh, this person's in marketing, this person's in sales. Like it takes a little bit of like investigation and research on the person's end to like actually craft something that's going to land in the right way and get that conversion. Whereas something like a maybe I'm countering my points here, but like maybe something like a website request, like a pricing page visit, it's like you don't have enough signal there to like create something specific. And so let's run a different experiments with the SDR team and see like which one gets the highest conversion rate. But like it's kind of a guessing game and the signal's pretty light. So like let's automate that one, and we're okay with that lower conversion rate as long as we don't have too many human resources like going after that signal. So hopefully that made sense. I don't.
Yeah. Is it almost like the more signals that are being stacked, like the more of like a white glove approach you'll take versus like just one blatant obvious signal that's like, okay, there's nothing else. They've only looked at our pricing page for a quick second versus like, wow, they've liked all of these posts and they have been on our pricing page and they've also used our product in their past and they've also now changed companies too. Like that's a lot.
Yeah, I would say it depends on the play where it's like, okay, the one I mentioned before is like they changed jobs and they were a former product user. Like the message there is probably going to be this almost the same. Like it's going to be very formulaic where it's like, hey, I saw, congrats on the new gig. I wouldn't say that. That's like the bad thing to say, but I'm just like using it as an example. Congrats on the new gig. I know you were a big fan of us last time. I saw you moved here. Would love for you to like, bring that on, and a little for us to help you and like get some quick wins there or something. Like that's like the general gist of that message. It's not going to be so bespoke. But it does take a little bit of human review, but it's like much more repeatable than something like this soft signal that doesn't have a bunch of stack. So I guess it really just depends. That's a terrible answer, but I think it depends.
Well, for us, like on a free trial is one of our strongest signals. I'm sure it is for you as well. We get a free trial sign up, and for our product, people start to integrate their data into the platform, and we get product notifications of that happening, and then we can log in. And our sequence, for maybe 10 days, one of our sequences is literally log into the platform, see what they've integrated, see if you see any insights for them, help them to build insights. That is a very white glove approach, but it works because we know that that's a very strong signal for us. If we can give them a successful trial and we can show them insights from that trial, then we're likely going to get a sign up a paid customer. And so we will take our time. It'll be white glove, and our sales team has to act like basically solutions consultants or sales engineers, however you would think about it in your organization, to do that for the customer.
As we kind of start to progress a little bit more in the conversation, I'm just also monitoring the chat too. So Bethany, I think there's a little bit of a question there. I can also answer it on the side too. But as we kind of get into like the next section, I'd love to kind of go into, any favorite signal plays that we all have, anything that like comes to mind that you really are like, ooh, this one is working really well. And then we'll go into like a show and tell segment where we'll kind of talk about how you can use signals to go and get meetings on the calendar, and it'll be a little bit more tactical. But before we get into the tactical piece, any signals that anyone wants to share, or like signal plays that are, maybe their favorite right now?
I think we're gonna go.
I'll go. I mean, I kind of jumped the gun on the free trial one. Just kind of give you a rundown of how we think about it. I mean, the other one that I think, in general, if you look at the sales world, and I've just lived through it, I've had to adjust over the last few years as to what's changed, and that is buyers come into the buying process with just a ton more information than they ever have. And so you really have to think, okay, where are they getting that information? And so to me right now, what I'm really interested in is kind of community signals. They're going out, they're getting information from community members, from friends. That's always happened, but I think it's much more easier to do these days, and you can get a dozen opinions on a product you're thinking about buying before you even have to talk to somebody at that company. So I think a lot about the community signals right now, things that are happening kind of outside of our purview, and how do you capitalize on that.
My favorite signals tend to be the ones that they're bespoke to the company that cares about the signal. And there's like no one else who's kind of tracking or caring about that signal. One example of that could be, and this is something that like we've seen customer do and we do ourselves at Common Room, is like we see people hiring for a specific role. So this might get me in trouble, but 6sense is one of our competitors. And so one play that we run is like, what are accounts in our core ICP that are hiring for someone or that are hiring for different roles, and they have 6sense listed in that role. And so like, that's a signal that not a lot of other people care about. It's not like a job change. It's not like a website visit. Those are like the typical go-tos. And so I feel like those specific signals that are like, we really care about them, and like maybe like a handful of other signal-based companies really care about them, but like no one else does. I feel like finding those kind of like little nuggets or cheat codes are my favorite signals, because it's like, oh, no one else is doing this. It's like this completely new, innovative approach. And like, we're really identifying people who are in market, because we know for sure that they're hiring for a need that like our product can replace. And so that's like always what I'm looking for in consulting or running our own signal-based plays.
It's funny, we use like that same signal, not 6sense, but like our competitors and the hiring, and the jobs as well. And that's been a good one for us. I'll also add just a couple ones that are different. I agree, like social, like community intent signals are really good. We actually don't have a free trial. So for us, like we're not looking at so much like free signals, but like you can start the sign up process, and then before you choose your plan, that like, or you get to a point where you have to choose a plan. And so a lot of people bounce there. So that's a really good signal that you were like interested in exploring. We try to get people to book demos from there, but just in case they don't, then we have, some automated outreach around it. And then we'll also look at signals, not so much with a free plan, but with a paid plan to see if there's room for expansion or like bringing, if people are signing up as individuals, is there an opportunity to bring the company on board, like the larger company on board?
So let's kind of do a little bit of a show and tell here. Let's kind of dive into a little bit about like maybe we can show what a signal is, or a signal that we're leveraging today and how that translates into a campaign. Bethany, if you'd like to get started, I'm gonna answer Bernie in the chat.
Sorry, I was actually just reading Bernie's question as well, so I missed what you said.
Oh, if you want to go ahead and show and tell a workflow that we have. Where you're taking a look at signals and then how we're getting that on the calendar. So like an example is maybe like how we're analyzing like our B2B workflows and then bringing that into like SendSpark campaigns.
Yes. And just to answer Bernie's question out loud, like I do feel like maybe we have some like total signal geeks that are all together, like talking about signals with other people who really understand signals. But for those of you who are like really who are more new, like to answer Bernie's question, what I'd say is like at like the most simple level, like we're just talking about like when's the best time to reach out to people where you're going to get the best response. And so like that's the signal. It's like, yeah, there's more like layers and complexities and all this stuff, but the simple like point is just, should you be reaching out to someone like to improve your relationship and not burn it? So I'm going to share like a use case that we're running at SendSpark that I think would be relevant to a lot of people, which is just sending an automated personalized video when people visit your website to give them a little bit more context on what you do and also open the door to a conversation without being like super, super pushy. I'm going to share how we do this, and also feel free to write more questions in the chat too, guys, if you want more, like if you want us to like tone things up or down or talk about anything specific. I also just realized what I'm going to show is like fairly technical, so ask if you have questions. But what we're doing using a few different tools is we're reaching out to people when they're on our website and sending a personalized video. We use our B2B to identify website visitors. And then when people are on our website, our B2B will de-anonymize the website visitor, so tell us who they are, and then send this webhook into Clay. And this webhook has all kinds of information about the person, like who they are, what their email is, their job title, other information, and it just gets like stacked up here in the Clay table. Once we know who they are, then we can automatically create a personalized video using the SendSpark integration here. So what we're doing is we're taking the information from that webhook and we're pushing it into SendSpark. From here, every person gets a video that's created for them, like this.
Hey, Eric. Thanks for taking a look at SendSpark. Here is a quick video to show you some of the superpowers that we've built in for sales outreach and marketing automation.
And then it shows a little demo after that. I'm not going to show you, but I'll show a couple other examples.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for taking a look at SendSpark.
And one more.
Hey, Matthijs. Thanks for taking a look at SendSpark.
So you can see we're basically using the same video, but we're personalizing it for every person with AI by saying their name and then showing us recording over their website. Once that video gets generated, there's a little success symbol here in Clay, and then we're automatically enrolling them in a mini sequence. It's just a 3-step email sequence in Smart Lead that has a personalized, like a quick intro to start, and then we send that personalized video, and then we send one other case study just to open the door to conversation for people on our website. So this is one campaign we're running of many, but hopefully like a simple replicable thing for you guys in the audience.
Excellent. Thank you. Because it is like you analyze the signals, there's all these different signals, and to kind of backtrack with what Bernie was saying, where his question there is that signals could be on your website, it could be in social posts, it could be the people who join this webinar, like things like that are signals. It's when someone is showing an interest in your company or, you as a person. And then you choosing after you've seen that they have either been on your website or liked a post or a job change or went to a webinar, how do you now take those actions? And so what SendSpark is doing is then evaluating what that action is and then sending a video that's a little bit more personalized to that. For our next show and tell, would either of you like to show and tell a play that you guys are using to kind of book some meetings that's a little bit more tactical?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Of course.
Cool. Let me share. So this is Common Room. Our team uses Common Room, so we're not only what's the like just for men thing? I forget what it was like. We're not only users, we're like advocates, we're like users of our product or whatever. So anyways, these are all different signal-based plays that we run. You can see this is actually very similar to the one that Bethany just shared, which is like pricing page visits from economic buyers in the last 28 days. And so from here, we can see anyone who's visited our website, and we can add different filters. This is what like the attributes would come into play. I can say like, okay, these people have raised capital of at least like $5 million. And narrow that down to what our core ICP is, and you can add multiple filters to narrow that list down to the set of people who have taken this signal and also that you care about. So that's kind of like combining what we talked about earlier, like matching the signal with the attribute. Actually, I'm going to go to a different signal here. This is one I was talking about before, is the job changers who are former product users. And so we can add a filter in here of, let's see, organization size is at least 200 people. From here, like if I'm a rep and I'm jumping into this view, I can say like, okay, do I want to look into each one of these people and like pull up their full activity? We know that they've done these two different signals. We're like stacking these two things. And I can say like, okay, based on all the activity that we're seeing on this user, they're engaging in our social posts, they're visiting our website, like what is the actual play that I want to run? Or I can say like, okay, we know this play converts really well. We've stacked ranked these different plays to knowing like, they get this much reply rate or this much conversion rate. And so like, essentially it's like a prioritized list for our team to work on. If I'm a rep, I can jump in and say like, okay, Jackson here, I'm going to click on Jackson and I'm going to just add him to the sequence that I know like works really well, which is a sequence that we've built for job changes for a former product user. I can add that person to the sequence and then they'd be like checked off of this view. And then essentially as a rep, I'd like go down the list. And so this is a way for me to get the most value and prioritize my day using a product like Common Room. So, and you can see there's lots of other signals, our signal-based plays here. This one is an example of an org-based play. So this is any organization with a good score who has mentioned an AI initiative in their 10K. And so from here, it's at the account level, you have to like, as a rep or marketing person, go in and see like, okay, who are the people who we care about, who we want to reach out to because of this one signal. And so it allows you to do that same kind of like actioning, but at the account level too. So yeah, that's kind of like a view into how we prioritize our team's time with signals. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, really, really cool. I love the Common Room product. It's really fun to dive into and like kind of play around. So love seeing what you've been building out because now you're giving me ideas.
Yeah, take a screenshot. Those are all the plays that are actually working for us that I've just mimicked. So those are maybe good starting points if you have that kind of signal.
Yeah, and I can also send you an intro to Jax. I got a new network, so
Nice.
Nick, anything that you'd like to share or show and tell or anything that you would love to add?
I think I can kind of visualize. I don't have a clean space to show you where it doesn't show actual customers requesting to speak to us, but I can just kind of show you how it works basically. So let me share my screen. Obviously, this is just our website, very big signals, very big space for us to receive signals naturally. And this is, you come into the pricing page, we'll have somebody request a trial. And what happens from there is we don't necessarily get notification. Someone on my sales team doesn't get a notification that, hey, this is a potential lead for you, because we needed to go through and make sure, is it ICP, and are they performing actions once they sign up for the trial? So we need to make sure they're actually integrating something. And so this gets pushed into, I'll just share Slack, but I can't share the actual channel because I've got customer names in there. But basically, what we'll get is, and you can see it's live here. We'll get a free account sign up notification. We'll get HubSpot new qualification just landed, so it was an ICP customer that created the account, and then we'll of course get a notification that, hey, somebody integrated something to the product, and then that tells the person, if the account isn't already assigned, then it would be assigned to somebody, and then they would be assigned the account in both HubSpot and in Apollo, which is what we use for our sequencing. And then we have a dedicated sequence for that type of signal. So pretty straightforward from that example on what we do.
Perfect. And I think it kind of just goes to show, like, every company has a different type of signal that they're analyzing, even down to like the individual and what they're taking a look at, and then how they're acting on that too. So the way that we're taking a look at signals today, it is going to keep evolving for sure. But the point of today is also just understanding, like, not just what a signal is, but being able to picture how you can start leveraging signals like in your business or on your own. As we start to wrap up, I do want to see if there's anyone have any questions in the chat or in the webinar, like the webinar chat, if anyone wants to add any more. Otherwise, is there anything that you guys would like to share as we start to kind of wrap up on our webinar that maybe you wanted to share, but we didn't go over it or anything like that?
Good on my end. Happy to take questions. Any questions, throw them at us.
Yes, any questions, feel free to
Oh,
throw.
Bethany, you're on mute.
I was gonna say, one thing I'll add is, like, a cool thing about running these plays is that they're all very individual. Like, of course they can combine and you can do multiple, but if you feel like, oh, this is a lot, I can't do everything, it's like, cool, just pick one and then do that, and next week add another and add another. And you'll see results even from just doing one signal play.
Yeah, I guess one thing we didn't really touch on is, like, they need to be running signal-based plays. It needs to be efficient. And so, like, we try and it all depends on your business unit economics and stuff like that, but we try and have like some sort of threshold of, like, if our team is going to act on the signal, like, what is the minimum conversion rate? For us, it typically is in the ballpark of like a 5% conversion to a meeting booked if our SDR team is working signal-based plays like I was just showing. And so that's kind of like our minimum bar. And that just kind of like works out of the equation of, like, okay, a meeting booked converts to pipeline at 50%. Pipeline converts to close one at 33%. Because of that, our team is spending like this much amount of time. So like every single signal-based one signal-based play that we run per person essentially comes out to some sort of like $50 of spend or time invested in that of that, like, translates back to ARR. And so, like, we kind of like work out all of that back of napkin math to say, like, okay, this is the minimum threshold. And so, like, if something's under that threshold, it's like, okay, push that over to like a score to automation to something else, so you don't have to have a human in the loop. So that's something, it's a little bit more advanced of a concept, but it's definitely something that is a requirement for doing this approach efficiently.
Actually quite crazy, because I feel like, at least when I first started in sales, like, we were legit throwing spaghetti at the wall. Like, we were just outbounding our given account list, and like that was the context. And so as this has fully evolved, like, looking at even just that, like, how much spend, like, what's really worth it, just analyzing each signal like that, it really just goes to show, like, how valuable just looking at these, analyzing these, potentially stacking them if there's more than one, and then going in and creating outreach or like different automation campaigns to help, bring them in to book that meeting or whatever your call to action is. It's just so cool to see how it's changed.
I have a question for the for the panel, if that's allowed. I'm curious, of the signals that you guys identify for your teams, how much of that is like, okay, signal identified, trigger an automated sequence, or trigger identified, therefore like pass to sales and have a human effort? Like, is it all one way, all the other, or what split is it?
I would say for us, it's probably like 70% still reviewed by the sales development team and also AEs and CSMs to some extent. The AEs and CSMs have like very small amount of signal because they only care about their book of business, which is typically smaller than the SDR team. But then there are like that 30% where it's like we've gotten to the point where it's just like we don't need human review because it's just repeatable. And that typically tends to be things like, for whatever reason, it tends to be website visits. And website visits, if we can enrich a persona, like the sequence that we drop them in is all pretty much the same because we don't know all that much about the person. And so like it's a little bit of a guessing game. We don't want to have our team invest too much time in that. So it like tends to be fully automated. And even like, especially at the account level where it's like a website visit from an account, then like prospect the right peer person from that account or 5 people from that account and then send that email out, or LinkedIn message or whatever out. So that like lesser, it's again like the spectrum of conversion, like the top end where you don't get a high conversion. That's where we have a lot of automation going on.
Yeah, same. There's a lot of automation. I would say with website visits as well. We really, I'll just use what you said, Kevin. Signal stacking is important for us. If we don't see at least two or three things happening with an account, then we're not sending an actual person after it. You know, for example, we see somebody visit the website, of course, they get thrown into an audience and we're retargeting them. Things like that are going to be completely automated by the marketing team as opposed to the sales team. And then there may not even be a sequence involved with like a named person on the account.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, where you get a signal and then like a website visit or a LinkedIn engagement or something like that, that triggers the marketing team to, because that's very top of funnel, that triggers the marketing team to invest more into that account. The marketing team creates content, they try to engage with that account. That creates more signal. And then like once you stack multiple signals, that's when it gets like passed over the line to the sales team, is typically what we see as like a good, also a good approach to like get light signal and increase more and then pass it over. It's like a decent strategy.
There's a question in the chat for you, Kevin. Can Common Room track digital event attendees like this webinar as a signal?
We can. We track natively meetups, and some other integrations, because of like webinars being all across the board and like different APIs like the Zoom API versus what's the other one, Air Meets or something like that. It's really hard for us to just automatically track all that signal. And so what we typically do is either connect via API or connect via Zapier to pull that signal into Common Room, or like at the very, very bare minimum level, it's like, okay, we know all the people we get the report of everyone who's attended this webinar, pull in a CSV and then like make sure it's clean and then upload it into Common Room. And so like you can definitely do that and pull in any signal from anywhere. I would say the webinar side of things is usually like there's only 25 people or so on this call. And so it's usually a little bit more of like a manual thing or like a custom integration where it's like using Zapier or something else for these types of signals.
Yeah, we'll pull event data as well, but everything is, there's not one like major player where they have an API they can say, oh, these attendees get fed into this API, you can pull it from there. That hasn't happened in the event space, really.
Oh, I forgot it. Oh, there's a cheat code for this too, which is like a lot of the webinar platforms connect with a CRM or HubSpot. And so if you can get data into HubSpot or your CRM, then since that's a system of record, you can sync all that one-to-one over to a tool like Common Room or some other signal-based platform.
Yeah, that's where I was heading. Like basically you get it from your CRM. If you've got a campaign tied to it, something like that, and you got campaign members, then you know that person was there, and that's how you do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, everyone. I know that we have a few more minutes left, so if there's anything we want to share, but otherwise, if anyone has any other questions in the chat, and then if not, then would you guys anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
Nothing really for me. Thanks everyone. I'm on LinkedIn. I talk about this stuff all the time. So follow me, plug for me, plug for Common Room.
Drop your LinkedIn in the chat.
Oh,
Okay.
sure.
Nothing to add. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining.
Yes, thank you. This was so fun for me, like to talk about it, learn from you guys. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's been really fun.
All right,
See
everyone.
y'all.
Well, have a good weekend. Thank you all for joining. This was recorded. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.